Good evening, cohort, and welcome to week 11. My name is Lianne Yu, and I am currently teaching high school music at an international school in Beijing. I love playing musical instruments, writing orchestral music, and directing performance groups. In the upper right photo, I am with my students in the orchestra. The lower right photo is a picture of a recent large-scale performance with my jazz band and student swing dancers. The next few photos are more performance groups, like the orchestra, the jazz band, and the musical pit orchestras. School consumes most of my life at the moment. I experience a fast-paced lifestyle, but I still have time for visits from my family. As you can see, my brother and I are at the Great Wall in the lower right photo. On to our class material. As an introduction, the big question of what is teaching comes up frequently. First, here are the responses that Davis received from his students. Next, here are the responses that I received from my colleagues in Beijing. I would like for us as a cohort to create a cloud of our own. Therefore, I would like for each of you to list the top 10 descriptors of what teaching is to you. Each descriptor can be a chain of words if you like. I will create this word cloud on Thursday night Calgary time. Please pause the video now and respond to this question on the discussion board. This is now the outline of the material summary. We will first explore making discernments, discuss conflations, and then finally discuss harmonies. From our responses to the word cloud question, think about where your descriptors came from. Most of them were based on your ideas of what knowledge and learning is. For example, if knowledge is objective and learning is acquisition, then teaching is about directing students to the knowledge. If knowledge is desired behaviors, learning about changing these behaviors, then teaching is about training the behavior. However, if knowledge is about making distinctions, learning about discerning amongst the possibilities, then teaching is about providing opportunities to make distinctions. Therefore, the bottom line that I gathered from this week's lecture is that the group is smarter than the smartest of its members, meaning that all of us is smarter than any of us. As a group, we are capable of new actions, interpreting the interpretations and conclusions that couldn't be developed by even the smartest individual of the group alone. So how do we create these possibilities? By first considering conflations. Conflations are different terms that are commonly undifferentiated. We want to move from a curriculum that is linear, filled with simplifying, flattening, and step-by-step motions into a complex, explicated environment where all the fold lines can be seen and how they all fit together. We will consider these conflations in a musical example. In response to the TED Talk about Chopin's piece, which was actually very moving for me, and I've decided to show the video to my students as we are currently studying music from the Romantic era, I want us to try to respond together to a piece of music. Since we want to consider the bigger picture, give everyone an opportunity to make discernments, and move in a non-linear fashion, I propose the following task. We will listen to a clip of music, which actually does indeed have a story intended, but I will reveal the composer's original story at the end of the week. There are 3 sections to this piece of music, and we will create a story together. Here are the steps. Number 1 is to listen to the music posted in the forum. Number 2, in the forum, please add 1 to 3 sentences to the story as it progresses, trying to pay close attention to the musical sections as a guideline. Number 3, copy and paste the story as it progresses, putting your own contributions in bold. You can contribute to any part of the story, meaning that you can add sentences in between other sentences as long as you bold your own contributions. Please pause this video now and add to the story. The conclusion of this activity is that teaching is about curriculum design, to adapt and enable participation, and also include complex beings and sensibilities. Next, we will discuss harmonies, which are differences that are complementary to each other, where a balance between the two harmonies are needed. Firstly, we discuss enabling constraints, where the balance is between structure and flexibility. Having structure helps to limit what seems like a limitless, countless possibilities, where a lack of structure could lead to paralysis and stress. However, there should be enough flexibility to allow for varied responses and a play on the strengths of the group. There is also a balance of using established knowledge as a basis for establishing new knowledge or perspectives. The next harmony to discuss is redundancies versus diversities. We do indeed need both of them. Redundancies or similarities allow for group work or communication with each other. Similarities also allow for a more robust system where if one fails, another one can replace the missing action. On the other hand, diversity is needed for novel actions to arise and represents the system's intelligence. It is also more outwardly oriented. Lastly, we discuss the harmony of us and me, independence and interdependence. The collective identity, so the us, ensures that each member understands and defends the rationale of the group, and the tasks are shared. Responsibility are to the group, and group learning ensures. Whereas the me side, the individual identity allows for each person to participate. Therefore, learning isn't an accumulation of knowledge in a step-by-step fashion, but rather, ideas are added in a recursive manner. An interesting discussion also takes place later in the chapter about feedback loops. Positive feedback loops amplify actions, where the rich get richer, where negative feedback loops dampen actions and try to maintain consistencies, like how your body regulates its temperature. An example of a positive feedback loop that is effective is the positive correlation of a longer wait time between asking a question and getting answers from the students, and the depth of the answer, which was illustrated by Davis in his lecture. Another example is positively reinforcing the emotions that you want amplified, broadcasted about the interest in your subject or topic, also known as emotioning, also described in Davis's book. On the flip side of positive feedback loops, anxiety can cripple performance, thus amplifying anxiety. Negative feedback loops are naturally in place and can be associated with the concept of being normal. Negative feedback loops also need to be considered because they are already in play. Overall, the bottom line is that all of us is smarter than any of us. It was interesting to hear that the peers of the students that we teach matter more than the parents sometimes in terms of the students' development of personality. And I do feel a deeper burden because we as teachers deal with children as they interact with their peers. So what now? Davis talks about being practical in his lecture for the next 2 weeks. So here are some tasks if you are interested. Answers can be flexible, and please comment on other people's responses. Here is choice number 1. Using the table previously addressed, which is on this slide, about where your descriptions of teachings come from, and also the example given by Davis about making discernments on this slide here. Describe a lesson objective that you've used or experienced before and explain what knowledge, learning, and teaching are in relation to that choice. Here's an example of what I mean. If my lesson objective was to understand program music, my breakdown of knowledge, learning, and teaching might be the following. If teaching is to be able to articulate, identify, and distinguish what program music, so music with a story, what that is, and if learning refers to developing listening skills to observe common characteristics in program music, then teaching is to provide opportunities for collective listening, a selection of what to listen for from a pile of stuff. Okay, come up with your own and you can post that under choice number 1. Choice number 2. Remember Elaine's example of the math problem on this slide here? This lesson wasn't concerned about giving rules and implicating 100 practice questions to enforce learning, but it included only one example to produce a robust understanding through a consideration of the harmonies. Please refer to a specific lesson example that you have experienced or taught where one or a few examples were used to produce robust understandings. How and why was it effective? You can post this under choice number 2. Choice number 3. This asks, although emergent research shows that we should adopt the mindset of all of us is smarter than any one of us, what are some constraints that we are experiencing, insisting on the contrary to this idea? And how can we create a classroom where this concept is a visible consideration? You can post your answers under choice number 3. Here are some of the sources that I've used. Lastly, I will create the word cloud on Thursday night, Calgary time, and I will also post the original musical scores and the original musical story on Friday. Thank you all for listening and reading.